Hello iPaaS developers. In this video, we are going to see database connector in Apache Camel K. So what is database connector? It is used to perform database operations with the different databases. So we can use this DB connector to connect all kind of databases. It is used to read data from database tables, and it is used to write the data to database tables. Write means here inserting data into tables. Then we can modify data or remove the data. So you can execute update queries or delete queries in the existing data to modify the rows. We can use this connector for executing the stored procedures in all kind of databases. In some scenarios, we have to maintain the transaction management. That also we can achieve using database connector. We can use this database connector for batch processing as well. In Apache Camel, we have two connectors. One is SQL and another one is JDBC. Both are used to do the database operations. First, let's see SQL. It supports consumer and as well as producer. So what is consumer? So we can make this component or connector to listen particular tables and execute queries to retrieve the data as per schedule interval time. We have file listener, FTP listener. Similarly, this is kind of database listener. So whatever the query we have given, it will execute those queries on the given interval and retrieve the records. So this URI syntax is SQL : then we have to pass this query. When we are using to insert some records, we are using the prepared statement named parameter. So in that case, we have to use the hash symbol in this SQL component. Let's see about JDBC. It is used as a producer only, which means we cannot use in from component. So we cannot use this connector as a listener. This SQL in from component and as well as to component. But here this JDBC connector can be used only in to component. We cannot use it in the from component. The URI syntax is JDBC : then we have to give data source here. In SQL component, the data source is passed as a query parameter. Here, the URI itself, we are passing the data source and query is passed as a body. Then in this component, for the named parameters, we are using question mark. When we are using this DB connector, we need to understand this connection pooling or data source concept in Apache Camel. So in Camel, we can create data sources 3 different ways and use those data sources. First one is quarkus JDBC data source. Second one is dbcp data source. Third one is hikari data source. How we can create these data sources or connection poolings? We have set of properties. If you initialize those properties in your application properties, when the application gets started, it will create this connection pool and initialize all the connections. Whenever we are performing DB operations, it will use the connection from this connection pool. It won't create a new connection and close the connection. So all this creating connections and maintaining the connection as per our configuration is handled in this connection pool. Let's see what are the different types and what are the properties we need to configure. First, we are going to see this quarkus data source. This is the property key we have to give, quarkus.datasource. Then you can give this data source name. So this is a user defined name. So you can give any name. Then the DB kind, so which is giving what is the database we are going to connect. Then the username for this database and password for this database. Then we have to give the JDBC URL to that database. Then this minimum connection size and maximum connection size. Then initial connection size. So based on this configuration, the connection pool created when we are using quarkus JDBC data source. So these are all the properties for hikari connection pooling. So here we have to give the class name, the hikari data source class name, and we have to use this particular class dependency as well. Then here also camel.beans.hikari ds, this is our data source name. Then we have to give JDBC URL, username, password, then which database we are going to connect. Based on that database, we have to give this driver class and minimum connection, maximum pool size. Then we can give the timeout values as well. Next one is dbcp data source. For this, the same bean concept. Here we have to give this particular class, dbcp data source class. Then the database URL, username, password, and minimum maximum connection details. In this demo, we will see two scenarios. One is retrieving data from database and writing into a JSON file. Another one is reading the JSON file again and loading into the database. Let's see the demo. For this demo, I installed and set up Postgres database in my machine. So I have one table called student. In this table, we have 23 rows. So my database is ready and I have one table with records. Now I'm going to create my route to select the record from student table and generate as a JSON file. For this, I'm going to use this SQL connector. So for that SQL connector, so we have to use this Camel quarkus SQL dependency, and for this Postgres database, we need the Postgres driver. So for that, I'm adding this dependency. So now I'm creating my route from SQL. Then we have to queue the query, select stop from student. So give this column names, that is a best practice. This is our query. Then we have to pass the data source. For this data source, I have created dbcp data source by these properties. So I have initialized these properties here as per this previous PPT. So my data source name is dbcp data source. So here I have to give data source. So when we are using bean data source, we have to call by this way. Since I use this SQL component as from, I have to pass the delay interval as well. 20 seconds. Then I want to execute only one time. So this component will execute this particular query and bring the records. So I created the whole route, so which is using this SQL component to select records using this query. So I have given the data source name here and the delay time, and I'm giving the repeat count is 1 to execute only one time. Then I'm logging this DB output and the headers as well. Then I'm converting this into JSON and logging the JSON body, then writing this into temporary folder with the file name dbcp underscore output.json. Let's run this. So it got executed. How this connector is behaving. So it is executing that particular query and it got 23 rows. So it is considering it got 23 rows and it is taking each row as a separate transaction. For each row, these below components are executed. So it is printing the DB output and the header. Then it is converting into JSON and printing the JSON and writing the file into the this particular file. Since we have 23 records, so it is overriding with the same file name. So if we dbcp output.json. So if I go to this folder, I can see this file. So if I'm opening then text editor, I can see the last student record in JSON format. When we are using as a listener, for each row, it is considering new transaction. For each row, the new transaction started and it will execute all these values. Suppose if I want to take all the records and generate in a single JSON, how we can achieve that? For that, we are not supposed to use this listener. So we have to use different approach to select all rows and generate the JSON file. So we can use different approach. In that case, I'm going to use this SQL component as a producer. So here I will modify this from timer. So I changed this. Now I modified this with the timer. So here I'm using this SQL component as a producer. So I'm giving this query and data source name. Let's see. It got executed. So it executed the query and retrieved all 23 records. This is the DB output. Then here we can see the headers. So it is giving camel SQL row count as a header variable and it is giving 23, the row count as a value. Then it is converting into JSON and the JSON file returned. If I go and refresh this, I'm opening this JSON now. So you can see all 23 student records created in a JSON file. So here we used SQL as a producer. Instead of this data source, if I want to use a hikari data source, then I can go to my properties and comment this. Enable my hikari data source. This is my data source name. I have to update here. Then updating these properties as well. The data source properties. Now if we see the hikari data source initialization happening and job will execute. So it executed using this hikari data source and generated the JSON file. If I open this JSON, I can see the same data. Now we have seen the JSON generated using both hikari data source and as well as dbcp data sources. Now I'm going to do the same operation using JDBC connector. So for that, we have to use the JDBC connector. We are going to set body. I have to set this query as a body. Dot to JDBC colon. Then we have to give data source. So for that, I have to create the quarkus data source. So I'm enabling this. What is my data source name here? Quarkus data source. I'm giving this here. Save this file. Application is getting restarted. It got executed. This is the DB output now. Then in the header section, you can see Camel JDBC column names. It is giving this list of columns. Then row count. Here there are two header variables are added by this JDBC component. Then it is converting these records into JSON, and the JSON file created in this folder. If I refresh this, I can see quarkus data source output. Here also I can see the same JSON. We have seen 3 different data sources and how to use them in SQL and JDBC component to select the records from the database. Now let's see how to insert records into database from this same JSON file. For that demo, I created another table. So I created replica of this student table with a different name, employee. So here we do not have any records in this table. Now I'm going to create route to load data from that JSON to this particular employee table. So here I created another route, so which is listening this particular temp folder. Now I'm going to delete these 2 files. I deleted now. So here we do not have any files right now. So I created my route, which is listening this particular temp folder, and it is reading that JSON file and splitting that JSON file using this JSON path. Then it will give each student record. I'm doing this marshal.json, which is converting that into JSON. Then I'm setting this headers. So I'm creating these header variables, ID, this value taken from the JSON input ID. Then same way I'm taking F name from first name and L name from last name, age from the age field. Here this ID and age is maintained as an integer value in the database, so we have to convert the header data type as integer. Similarly, I initialize all these variables in header. Then I'm setting this body. Here I'm giving this insert query with named parameters. So here what are the parameters I have passed? All these parameters matching my header variables. Then I'm calling JDBC component using this data source. So it will execute this particular query with these header values and insert into my database. After that, it will log the header by this particular component. Let's run this and see. Now I remove these 2 files from this folder. So it will generate quarkus ds output.json. Then this route will pick up the file and load into database. I save this. Let's go. So application is getting restarted. So it got executed. So here this DB output, the first route got executed and it generated the JSON file. Then the second route got executed, the file listener. Then it pick up each rows and inserted into the employee table. And it logged the header variables after each row. So here we can see all these header variables initialized and this camel JDBC update count equal to 1. So whenever it insert one record, it is giving the update count is equal to 1. If you are using update query, then if it is updating more rows, then the header value will be updated according to the row count. Now if we execute this employee table, select start from employee query. I'm seeing all these 23 records inserted into this employee table. That's all. So we have seen how to retrieve data from database and generate JSON file, and how to load the data from JSON file to database table in this route. Thank you for watching this video. Provide your likes, comments, and share this video with your friends. For more videos, subscribe our channel. Thank you.